Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on a 2005 GMC Envoy. It has a fuel leak, so sit back and enjoy the ride. Okay, so we're going to be working on 2005 GMC Envoy today. My wife and I were at a hermeneutics class at church. For those who are interested in knowing what hermeneutics is, leave it a comment down below and we can discuss it. But anyway, we were coming out of class and there was the smell of gas in the air, and I was hoping that it was just someone in the area mowing their grass. And so when we got home, there was unfortunately a smell of gas as well. So it was coming from our car and not someone in the area mowing grass. So need to get underneath it and find out where it's leaking, what's leaking, and how to go about fixing it. Without getting under there, I'm assuming it's going to be a fuel line. That's a common issue on the GMs, is that the fuel lines will rot out. But we'll start from scratch and look at everything that we can look at without dropping the tank and whatnot, and see if we can find it. Okay, so here we are underneath the car. I have it jacked up on a couple jack stands, one at the front, one at the back, jacking up the whole driver's side. Here's the fuel tank. It runs for about half the vehicle, so if we don't have to drop this, that would be ideal. Okay, right here, where the fuel lines are coming from over the tank, obviously they go back to wherever the fuel pump is. The lines go up here to a quick connect. Then they go over the transfer case, which is what this is. So this takes the power from the transmission, sends it back to the rear axles and also up to the front axles, which gives you the all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. So this vehicle has selectable 2 all-wheel or 4 high, 4 low. So this is the transfer case that will transfer power from up to the front wheels. And then we come across, and well, that didn't take long at all. That fuel line is very wet right there. You can see right here it is soaking wet with fuel. So we found at least one leak, and then the fuel lines come over here and move up the vehicle over the transmission. That's not nice. I was hoping it was going to be along the rail for a good portion of it, but down the middle of the vehicle. Okay. So see here. Looks like they come from over the transmission. Actually, okay, so they're going just next to the transmission. So this here is the fuel line. They come over, come down. Then they make a loop right here and then continue up into the engine compartment. And so right here, they're not looking too bad. They are a little crusty around this bracket here. So it looks like if I drop the front drive shaft, it would give me enough room to access a large portion of this. Let me see where those steel lines go up front. Okay, so the fuel lines come up. You can see the two metal lines right there, and they come up. So they come up right here from underneath the computer, and then they go up here into the fuel rail. So not 100% certain the best way to go about this. I do have, well, I'll just show you. All right, so I do have this Dorman kit for making nylon fuel lines, and I did pick up this tool here, which will allow me to take and cut one of the existing steel lines that back to where it's not rusty. So the area where I said it doesn't look too bad, I could cut it back there, create a quick connect crimp on the existing steel line, and then run a nylon line back to where it's quick connected coming out of the tank to that first area I showed you. So that's what these tools will do for me. It just will allow me to replace the steel line with a nylon line, which obviously won't rust out, and as long as it's supported correctly, it shouldn't rub through anywhere, creating a hole. So there is that possibility. Now I just need to be able to get to the line and have enough space to be able to use this tool effectively to create the crimp needed. So I'll figure out what I have to do. Like I said, it looks like I'm going to have to drop the front drive shaft out to be able to get enough room to get the line out where it needs to come out, and then hopefully be able to have the space for the tool. So I'll get you back when you get all that torn out. All right, so to get these bolts off, they are an 11 millimeter. And because this is the front drive shaft, even though the vehicle's in park, it will move because we're not engaged in all-wheel or four-wheel drive. So should be able to spin these out pretty easily, hopefully. So there's one. There's two. There's three. There's four, and then they just have these little keepers on there, and then there are shiny witness marks that tell which way they go on. Now hopefully we can just take a little pry bar and pop that out. Doesn't seem to want to come out very easily. There's one side. And the other side, the cup doesn't want to come out, so we need to be mindful of that. All right, there we go. So you need to be mindful of these little cups here. They're full of needle bearings, and if you drop it and they come out, you will have to be replacing the U-joint, because you're really not repacking the needle bearings. I mean, it is possible, but working in the driveway, working in dirt, if you drop them, you might as well just replace it with new to
make sure you're not contaminating anything. Alright. So there's the front drive shaft. So there's the front drive shaft out of the front yoke. It does slide in here. You can see it sliding in, so we need to try and either push the drive shaft up so it goes over the yoke and slide it out of here, or push it back far enough to allow that front yoke, allow that front part of the drive shaft to fall down through the frame and then out. So and it doesn't seem to want to go in far enough, so we'll try and go the other direction. Alright, so this comes out like a CV axle. So just put a little pry bar in there. There's a little retaining clip on those splines that will hold it in the transfer case. So you need a little pressure to pop it out of that. And then the whole unit should slide out. But again, we're still fighting that end on how to best finagle it out without dropping. I suppose I could drop this cross member. If I don't have to, I don't want to. Just, it would be one thing if you're working on a lift and you can access all the bolts easily, but working upside down on the dirt makes it more difficult. So we'll see if I can finagle this thing out without having to pull the whole car apart. All right. Okay, so we've slid this out. Keep going forward. And now slide it back. And out of the way. So right here is that little spring clip that you needed to pry to get the shaft off. It's not under much tension, it's just there to hold it. And the shaft is not keyed, so you don't really need to worry about that. And now we can access the steel lines. So like I said, they come from up above, come down, run along the transmission, along here, over the transfer case. Of course, that's where the connection is. And you can see, again, the fuel leaking out of the one line, and you can see the fuel leaking out of the one line, and honestly the other line isn't much better. So I think I'm gonna try and replace both lines back to this quick connect. Not that it's overly necessary, but just give myself more room. I am unplugging some wire harnesses just to, like I said, give myself a little more room. Alright, I need to get these fuel lines apart. There's a clip right here, so we need to try and get that out without breaking it. And there's also this bracket right here, which needs to come to open up in order to get the line out. And unfortunately, there's no real nice way to access this with the transfer case in place. So I got that bracket open, so the lines themselves just clip into that. Should be able to just pull that down and out of the way. Sorry about that, you guys are a little dirty. So this clip here just has this tab here. You pop that, open it up, and you drop it. So open it up, and you know, the line, like I said, the line's just sitting there. It's basically just a spacer. So these lines are just held in with this clip here. You just bend that open a little bit. Nothing horrible. And it should allow the lines to slide up and out of those. They don't want to stay open enough, you can just grab them with a pair of needle nose or something and just pry them open enough to get those lines to slide out. Go. It's opened up. Now those lines are free, and you can work your way down the vehicle, because there are several of those clips that you'll need to get open in order to get the lines out. So there's two more right there. And you know, like I said, if your lines are in better shape than mine, you can just replace one of them. Like I'm planning on replacing both, just because I'm here and I don't want to do it again. You can also buy the entire line from fitting to fitting, so from the engine compartment all the way back to where that splice is. So that is also a possibility. It was pouring rain for several days when this gas leak showed itself. So what I purchased was, in my mind, the easiest to fix whatever I might encounter without actually crawling under here in the rain. So this is why I'm going with replacing the fuel line like I am versus an entire piece. And then I'll have those tools to replace other I'll have those tools to replace other things in the future, when and if needed, whether it's for myself, friends, or family. So there is that as well. So having the specialty tools isn't a waste in my mind, because I can utilize them down the road for many other things, versus just this one fuel line. But your mileage may vary, and you make your own decisions on what tools you want and how you want to attack things. So when you're taking this apart, you want to be careful trying not to break it. It is just a clip, but you also don't want to get sprayed in the face with gas, even though this thing has a hole in it. There is still some fuel in the line. So you want to have a drain bucket underneath. To catch any fuel that might spill out. And it can be stubborn. As you can see, mine was pretty weak and fragile right there, so I'll just finish breaking that off. All right, so there's that. Line off. Let's bring that down here where we can work on it more easily. It is stuck in there good. Should just pop off, but for whatever reason, mine doesn't want to. Alright, so I grabbed a little tiny screwdriver, hopefully that'll work. Without, again, like I said, snapping it. Got it started. And you want to go gently on it. Hopefully I haven't snapped it. It's possible. Not sure. Doesn't feel like I did, but it's... I'm uncertain at this point. Goodness gracious. That does not want to go up at all. And I broke it. Alright, well. Yeah, so much for that. But we need to get that slid up and out of the way. Oh, this thing is fighting tooth and nail, not wanting to come out. There are O-rings in here that you need to try and not destroy, but I suppose I could just cut this whole unit off since I do have the nylon lined repair kit. Oh my word, that is in there good. Alright, so executive decision. I do have the nylon repair kit. I'll just cut this off here after wasting all this time. Put a new fitting on and just run it up to the front. And then the other line, is just a press fitting into the nylon right there. So I can do the same thing. I can just cut that off and do a straight splice, nylon to nylon. I don't need a necessary, well, probably should keep a quick connect on this line in case I ever need to drop the fuel tank. Although there may be, okay, so there's another quick connect, well, there's another disconnect right here on that line. So if I just do a barbed splice on that line and then run my nylon straight up to the front, that will definitely work. Okay, so it looks like it's 2 3/8 lines. There's one. Sorry if I'm in your way. And there's 2. Alright, so I got both those lines cut. And I will now just make up some lines there. And I gotta cut the other end. So we'll move down there and get those cut. We'll need a pipe cutter for that. So we'll move you down there. There's another one of these clips up here to get apart, just to facilitate getting the lines apart. And of course, there's no real good angle from underneath it, because it get to hug the car. And there we go. That's open. And we'll just pop that off those lines. And it went flying. I'll have to go find that. But now I can try and get these lines separate a little bit to be able to cut them. So just take the pipe cutter, spin it around, puts pressure and works its way in. Oh, still a little more fuel in there. Make sure you get your bucket underneath it. Okay, so the way this tool works is you take your line and taking the appropriate die, put it in. So the dies have little ridges on them and then a gap for the crushing. So the ridges clamp onto the pipe. So you slide your pipe in between the two dies, and you want your pipe to be flush with the end here. Then that goes into the press, and then you take and tighten down the clamp. Before it's too tight, you make sure that your pipe is flush. There's this little gauge right here. So there is this little gauge right here that folds down, and you want that even with the end of your die. And then you push your pipe in to that, and then you crank down on this, and you gotta crank on it. It is insane how much pressure this takes. But they do have the ability to take this off. One of the ends is threaded, and then it takes a 14mm wrench, which will go on there to allow you to get some more pressure. Because it takes a lot. And then I have to figure out which size cup you need. Still trying to
work that out because there's no instructions on which is what. So once you get your cup in there, it just goes into a slot. You tighten the handle down, which will bring the cup up to the piece that you're working on, and then that will tighten. All right, so then you screw this handle in until whichever cup you chose bottoms out. You take and tighten this handle, and then you pump away, which then pushes the piston out and compresses the tube in the die. But still not tight enough. It's sliding out of the die, and since I need to have my wife's car up and operational, I'll have to take the time and learn better on how to do this. So anyway, after you've compressed it and it stops, you then loosen this handle, which will allow the piston to retract. If your pressure doesn't come out, you unscrew the handle, which will pull it out, and you loosen your press to get your die out, and then you can see the flare starting to form. Did it with another one too, and you can see it's not even around, and so there are other ways in the Dorman kit to go about this, so I'm going to use those and practice with this for future. So one of the things in the Dorman kit is this compression fitting. So this with the barbs gets pressed onto the nylon line, and then it has a compression fitting, a little collar, and then a nut. So you would slide these up onto the steel line. So you would slide these up onto the steel line. You would have the plastic line installed here. Then you screw them together, tighten them down. It'll compress onto the steel line, forming a seal. And this is a viable option for fuel line, not for brake lines. So brake lines, since they're under higher pressure, it's illegal to use most compression fittings on brake lines. I do believe there is a specific one, but it's not recommended at all anyway. But just keep in mind that if you have to do a brake line, most compression fittings, I'm not going to say all because there might be something, are illegal to use. Alright, so the way this works, this is the Dorman kit. So this, like I said, is the compression fitting. It's a straight fitting, just slides onto here. You take your hose for whichever size you need. The line in there is 3/8, and then You can get it started on there. For this unit, it then has this die here, which again has the little grooves in the die. And there's different sizes. So this is for 3/8, 5/16, and 1/4. So it'll do 3 different size lines. So you take and put your hose in. And you take a wing nut and tighten that down. Then there are these 3 grooves here. So that corresponds with this right here, and then you can see it has a hole right there in it. So depending on which one you're using here will determine which of these holes that you put it in. Since we're doing the bottom hole, we'll use the bottom hole here. So you slide this unit here until this hole lines up with this hole. Then you take a wing nut. And then you thread that in. You want to make sure that you have enough sticking out to allow your fitting to go in. You can always loosen and slide it out further if it doesn't work the first time. And you just tighten down your wing nuts to secure it. And this is nice because it doesn't need to be as tight as the other unit. And then just like a bar clamp, you just squeeze the handle. It pushes the unit in. Now that has bottomed out in here, but it's not quite bottomed out here yet. So what I'll do is I'll just loosen these up a little bit. Loosen this handle. I'll slide this forward a tiny bit. Then tighten that back down. Pump it again, and there it goes. It's now seated fully into the hose. And you squeeze that trigger, releases it, comes back. Take out the wing nut from the bar. Allows that to come off the tool. Then you loosen, you take off this wing nut, open up your die, and now you have your fitting compressed onto your nylon line. And then to connect the 2 nylon lines together, where I cut them off by the gas tank, They do have this style of nylon to nylon fitting that is similar to a shark bite. So basically you just press the line in until it stops, and then you press the other line in until it stops, and you have your connection. There are metal barbs in here and O-rings that will seal. All right, so the way this fitting works is it has cone shape there, and it has a little crush collar which is tapered on both ends, so that fits in there. And then it has a nut with also has a taper, so as you tighten it, it crushes the center to seal the joint. So you put the nut on, and you put the crush on, and you slide the line in until it bottoms out. And then you tighten the nut down. And that is a 14mm wrench for the plastic line part, and a 17mm for the nut part. And of course it's way out of the way, so it's hard to get to. All right, so you can see me struggling, and I'll be back when I got this tight. And just taking the slide this fitting up on. And then you take your other end that you've cut. You slide that one on until both sides are bottomed out, and you've made your connection. So pretty simple. And then you just rinse and repeat with the return line. It's back in those little metal clips that you took them out of. It's a nice little cradle for them to sit in. And then you have this 3/8 clip that we took off before. You can put that back on. What that'll do is just tie your lines together and keep them from flopping around up here. Make sure you're grabbing the fuel lines and not the wires. And that just clips in, clips down.
So that's holding that together, those lines together, to keep them neat and organized. And if you remember, we took one off the front. Then just go and make sure that your compression fittings are tight up here. So we just go and double check these, and then we'll put that plastic clip on the lines as well. So be right back after I do that. Okay, so there's that. We got the clip in. Now let's try and get that drive shaft back in. Alright, drive shaft coming up. Oh, that's right. I had to go up here, past everything, past the drive shaft. I mean, past the power steering. And then, slide this up. Bring it back carefully, trying to avoid knocking those caps off to get the needle bearings everywhere. Alright, so it may take a few little love taps to get it to go onto the spline. You shouldn't need to beat it senseless, but it may need a little convincing. And then this side just comes up, and then your needle bearing cups sit right into these housings. Then you take your clip, and if you remember, one side was shiny, which was the inside. What you do is you'll get all your bolts started before you go and tighten down anything. That way you make sure it's not cross-threaded. Everything is seated in where it belongs. Nothing needs convincing. Oh. Lovely. This cup here seemed to slide. me just check it. It did slide. Then I dropped the needle bearings. Yep. Okay, so now I need to replace the front U-joint. So luckily the vehicle can drive without the drive shaft in, because I'm not going to be able to get that part tonight. And we have a wedding to go to tomorrow. So, because this is rear-wheel drive and it's nice weather, we don't need an all-wheel or four-wheel drive. So we'll take the collars out. So we'll take the drive shaft out again. All right, so this is what the little caps are. And if you look in here, this cap had popped off, and it's lined with all these little bearings. They line up all the way around. You can see them. You can see them right here, all lined up on the edge. Well, when it fell out, it allowed the needle bearings, if you look at the bottom, you can see a big pile of needle bearings. Well, so when it slipped out when I was trying to put it back in, it allowed the needle bearings to fall out of place onto the bottom, and I heard some hit the dirt when I took the cover off. So they're supposed to be packed nice and neat in there like that. And this here's a U-joint. It connects the drive shaft to the front axle. There's also one that connects the drive shaft to the rear axle. So this would sit on here like that, and you press down on. But like I said, needle bearings are gone. And again, it is a rear-wheel drive vehicle that can go four-wheel drive, so the front drive shaft isn't necessary for operation. You can drive year-round without it, or to save gas, you can take it out in the summer, put it back in the winter, whatever you want. It's not a necessity, but I do need to get a new U-joint now. So, all right, that's replacing the fuel lines on 2005 GMC Envoy.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, God bless.